Hello, my name is Dania Esperanza. Welcome to Hope Speaks. And today I'd like to talk about our informative years and how they can sabotage our dating life or our relationships. I have spoken in the past about the different levels of our brain frequencies when they go from 0 to 7 years of age, and from 0 to 2, we are at delta. Delta brain frequencies is like a adult knocked out in a deep sleep. Any deeper than delta, and you can have surgery. Then from 2 to 5 years of age, we move on to theta. Theta brain frequencies is like deep meditation or half asleep. So imagine a child from 2 to 5 years of age being in a half asleep stage of an adult. Then we go from 5 to 7 years of age and we are at alpha. Alpha is light meditation, and that, or you're like waking up from half asleep. You're not half asleep or deep sleep, but you are still in that very relaxed zone where you still haven't had your coffee. You still might not remember everything that people might say to you. So that is alpha, relaxed, light meditation. What this means is that when you are from 0 to 7 years of age, your brain is a sponge. It's picking everything up. So when our moms was pregnant, it was also the responsibility of everyone around her to support her and give her the strength to go through this pregnancy, the information that our moms needed in order for them to sustain themselves with nutrition, with vitamins, also with the nervous system. The woman shares so much of her body and her brain cells and gives all of this to this baby that she also needs support. She needs support from everyone around her. And when the fathers are not available and they're not there, it is a situation for the fetus, because you need both. It's important to have, if you don't have the father, having your grandparents or having the siblings of the mother to be supportive is also very helpful. So having the community around you to be able to give you that support to carry that fetus, that baby, through is very important. And it's not easy for a woman to do it alone. A lot of people think that because a woman is the one who's carrying the baby, that it is her responsibility to act and feel and think a certain way. It's not that simple, because you are dealing with levels of stress that are not for a normal human being to even imagine. So when you break it down even scientifically or even spiritually as a human being, you want to really support that mother and support that fetus that's being created. So when the baby, when you was born, if you was born and then your father wasn't there, or was a choleric father, very military, and wasn't also giving you the nurturing and the support that the mother and the child needed, that can also cause situations that you might need certain help or therapy in the future. And this is why when we are dealing with our informative years and we have no idea what happened to us, we can always ask questions, because if you ever have gone into therapy, they go into your childhood deep. They also go into your parents. They ask you about your mom and your dad, your relationship with your parents. How was it when you was a child? And the reason why they ask these questions is because they want to know about your informative years. So you should know about your informative years. You should know, why are these doctors, these therapists asking these questions? Why is it that it even matters? And then what does it matter when it comes to you picking a partner, picking a mate? Do you think that you're going to pick similarly like your mother? Are you going to pick similarly like your father? Do you want to break that chain? Do you want to understand why do you do the things that you do? So when you have these types of experiences as a child. They're called traumas. And these are things that you need to do shadow work. And it's important to kind of go to therapy and or even get a coach. Because when you're dating, you don't want to bring this type of information to someone. You kind of want to know this about yourself. You want to understand in self-discovery what creates this wonderful personality that you have, that you embody. You embody a specific personality that's designed specifically for you. But the interesting thing is that these personalities have core personality foundations, and you can get a baseline understanding of who you are, and then it opens up a whole world to see how can you help yourself? What can you do in self-discovery and in self-development that can propel you forward to understand things about your childhood that maybe these therapists and these doctors want to know? Why not you? Why not you find out what made you the way that you are? And then what can you do to help yourself? Because we want to manifest miracles. We want to manifest wonderful, wonderful things in our lives. And we have to do that by becoming a magnet and becoming that drawing force that's going to bring everything to us. And how can we become that if we are actually sabotaging that? We're pushing it back. We might be pulling it forward and then pushing it back, pulling and pushing. So it's important to understand, why am I pushing it away? Why am I sabotaging myself? Why is it that I meet the right people and say the wrong things, or meet the wrong people and say the right things and keep them in my life for way too long? So understand how have you been created, and then take that in and understand that it's not your fault. We make so many mistakes, and that's called being human. When I started to discover myself and I started to realize that I had this incredible mix of these two personality, which is, when it comes to wired that way, it's sanguine and phlegmatic, which is talkative, happy, open kind of person, and then the peacemaker, always trying to make peace with everyone. And you would think that that's not so much of a problem, but I used to interrupt people while they're talking, forget people's names, because while they're speaking, I'm already thinking about what I'm about to say. And it just is a whole list of things that I was realizing that I needed to work on myself, and that I was more than happy to improve those things. But I also started loving those parts of me. And one of the things that I will say to people when they're dating is, don't tell people that you're working on yourself unless they are in your life for the long term. Because unfortunately, when you show all your cards and you are fully and totally vulnerable with someone that you have just met, you don't know who that person is. And if you are still unhealed and you have dealt with these types of issues from 0 to 7 years of age, or even from 7 to 12, you had a lot of childhood trauma, then they will use that against you, because you don't know how toxic people can be. And if you're out there on a dating app, most people have multiple people that they're dating. It depends on the way you meet people, and you can pretty much get to know a person's personality after a couple of dates and a couple of conversations over the phone. But that doesn't mean that after a couple of conversations over the phone and a couple of dates, you're gonna go ahead and blur out, well, from 0 to 7 years old was my informative years, and I have a lot of insecurity issues and abandonment issues because both of my parents were narcissistic, and they were constantly fighting and bickering and arguing, and I was always caught in the middle. Obviously, that's going to allow the person to step back and maybe say, this is a wonderful person and they're very open and I like their honesty, but I'm not so sure. You know what I mean? So you want to be able to build that rapport, and what you really want to have conversations about are lighthearted things, the wonderful things about your career, the wonderful things about yourself, all of those great qualities. If they start asking questions that are a little bit deeper and you feel comfortable answering them, because you can definitely answer a question without giving too much information. For example, if somebody asks, how many men, or if you're a woman, or I don't know, same sex, whatever, have you been intimate with? And you can say, that's a very private and personal question. And I actually am uncertain. I don't keep a record, but maybe someday when we have a much deeper relationship, and you are supposed to know this information, when we're cross that line, then we can get back to that. But I think that there are certain questions that are irrelevant to the relationship. If a question like that is important to that individual, why are they asking that question? Is it because they have a long list of women or men that they have been involved with? Are they also afraid of an STD, or are they afraid of you had dated the same person, people they might have known, or a brother or a cousin or something? It is a small world. I live in a small state, so sometimes people ask these questions just because they kind of want to know if you was one of their friends' girlfriends, or family, or something like that. So it's not always a bad question, because you never know the situation you're in, but it is a kind of a little bit of a rude question if it is the first or the second date, or you have not crossed that level of relationship where you're intimate and you're supposed to have these types of conversations, because you do want to know if a person has taken care of themselves. There are questions that when you become deeper into the relationship, it's important, because if you're not sure if you want to have children with that person yet, because you also have to think about the background of the people that you're going to build a family with. One of my clients, who is a mother of a young girl who is in college, she was telling me that she's concerned about her daughter and who her daughter dates, because her parents are working very hard in raising their daughter to be respectable individual who works hard for her education and works hard for herself. I mean, I know personally this young lady has been working since she was about 14, 15 years old, and we're talking about supermarkets or whatever she can do in order for her to have finances to be able to pay for things that her parents might not be able to pay for. That is a conscious type of a child, and they love her. They will know that when she meets the right guy and she gets married, she is going to benefit him very well, and they want him to also have that same level of drive and be a hard worker, and also have things for himself, so that they can be a strong power couple. So she has the good intentions, and I know that her daughter might roll her eyes at her and say, oh mom, you're always criticizing the guys that I date, or whatever, but it is from a good place. It comes because as a parent, we are concerned for our kids, and we want to guide them and help them as well. But when it comes to me being a life coach now and a hairdresser, as being a hairdresser, we have constant questions that my clients ask me, because I get to know so many different people. And my young ones that are in their 20s, they happen to be either learning about themselves and starting in their lives, and they are curious about certain things. And it's so much fun talking to my girls that are in their early 20s and even in their 30s, because I have a lot of wonderful young ladies that I have watched grow up and It's wonderful to watch them get married and establish these beautiful relationships. And I'm always going to tell them, like, discover yourself, like, learn who you are. What has happened to you during your informative years? Your personality blend. What is your primary personality? What's your secondary personality? Know you, so that way when you start to date, you can understand who you're dating, ask the right questions, get the right vibe by that person, know whether you should stay there and continue to get to know this person, or maybe you should pull out as fast as possible. Give yourself time to get to know people, time to get to know yourself, and discover the kaleidoscope of the world, because we have such a big, vast world. When we're young, we kind of think that the world is just here. It's high school and that's it, and then we might go to a community college, and then we get married to the boy next door or the girl next door. That's not, like, for me, I think that I did it that way when it comes to being so young and having a child, but at a young age. But now, when being a life coach and being at the age that I am now, looking back, I love my children. I'm so grateful that I have them, but I would have taken my time in getting to know me, doing more healing, understanding what happened to me during those informative years, what makes me tick, and why do I do what I do. And then I would have been able to ask the right questions, say the right things. And also, if I said the wrong thing and if I did the wrong thing, I am also going to own it. I'm going to be that student in my life to learn from it, look back at it and say, hey, yeah, I did that. I made that mistake and I've learned from it, and I'm moving forward and I'm correcting myself. But I don't need to expose myself to everyone. In the past, I had a video, in my previous video, where I spoke about the Johari window, and we have 4 quadrants, where pretty much the open area where everybody knows, and you can always bring in people, what color you like, what's your favorite movie, what's the last book that you read. Those are wonderful conversations when you're getting to know a person, but you don't need to introduce them to your whole family. And if you have children, especially if you have children, you don't need to introduce anyone that you're lightly dating or just getting to know to your children, because you don't know. I met a lot of women who have made this terrible mistake. They introduce their children after they have had 1 or 2 or 3 dates with the guy, and they feel like, oh, okay, we're intimate, let me go ahead and introduce my children. Not even after you're intimate, you should introduce your children to the people that you're dating, because you need to first process all of that and give yourself time, because people change. I have seen it constantly. Once they get what they want and they make you feel very, very comfortable, and they're at a certain level, they can pull away, and then next thing you know, you're like, what? And they came to my house, and I introduced them to my children. I introduced them to my parents. I showed them pictures, and even my dog got to know them. And then you're stuck here with all of these pieces and trying to put yourself back together. So I definitely don't agree with introducing your children or your close family members to people that you don't know yet. It's important to get to know yourself first before opening yourself up to people and dating them. And while you are doing your healing process and getting to know yourself, you should be able to still date, because I don't think that you are ever done with healing. Healing is a journey. You're always learning things about yourself that you end up saying, oh, okay, I need to work on that. Or, you know what? I'm proud of that, and I'm gonna own that, and it's okay, So I shared a little bit too much one time with someone about the things that I was discovering, especially while I was learning to become a life coach and getting certification. And I told this man about me having to have a situation worth talking. And then it just seemed like every time we were having a conversation, he would interrupt me and he would say, hold on, you're talking too much, when I know that I was not, because I was pacing myself. I would wait until he was completely done with his conversation and saying everything he wanted to say, and then I would start speaking. And it was interesting because he would interrupt me and say that when something that I said was in disagreement or made him uncomfortable. He used the card of, wait a minute, you're going on a little bit longer. And I noticed it because I from the following conversation, I timed it on purpose. So I realized that this human being had not changed. I had known him before, and I had disconnected communication with him because of that. And then 2 years later, he came out of the woodworks. I met this guy actually on a dating app, and I forgot why I cut him off because we had only one date. So I was like, all right, I don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to be so mean. I am in a different light. I'm in that healing process. I'm in a much better place than I was 2 years ago. So let me have conversation with this person. Phone. And right before we were supposed to have an actual date, I made a decision that I was going to cut him off completely, and I went ghost because within the conversation I could tell that he was cutting me off, he was belittling me, he was using that particular card of me with having this type of communication style, and it was so disturbing. There was no way that I was going to even have a conversation over the phone with this person, so I just got rid of his number and blocked him, and I totally forgot that this human being even existed. But I was vibrating at a low vibration, and I was not really working on myself the way that I needed to work on myself. And when the minute we're always going to see these people, these human beings are narcissists and that are attention seekers and very rude individuals who want to put a person down and make you feel like you're less than. There are so many of these human beings out there, and when you have a track record of attracting these types of human beings, there comes a point that you say, "What? I am the common denominator. I need to change this." And with self-discovery is when you find out what is that magnet deep down inside of you that's drawing these types of narcissistic people to you, and what can you do to change that magnet, and that magnet happens to be our reticular activation system. And in my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit deeper about the reticular activation system and how it programs us during our informative years and even during our youth, when we start getting to know what dating is about. What can we do to change that? Like, share, and subscribe, and look out for the video where we talk about the reticular activation system, how it's a magnet and it draws things to you.